Hi, I'm Gary Ralston, and I'm a results leader.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
Yes, y'all. It's time once again for another ResultsLeader.fm. Welcome. If you're new here, welcome back. If you've been here before, and if you're back, you know what we're all about. We're about results and the men and women who are getting results for their clients. Today, Mr. Gary Ralston joins me, and we get into the most fascinating conversation. Has to be one of my top 3 interviews of the show, where we start getting into meta-cognition and thinking about your thinking and creating your destiny and your future and innovating. It's such a fun conversation. Let's jump in. Gary, welcome to the show, brother. Are you ready to rock this thing?
Absolutely. Let's do this, Jonathan.
All right. First one's a softball. We want to give an easy win to our listeners. What book have you given most as a gift?
Well, I've got 2 answers for that. One, of all time, I've recommended the book Creating by Robert Fritz. And it's a really fascinating and core to the work that we do. I think most recently, I have pointed people to The Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler, an excellent book on high performance and the flow in all parts of life. So those would be the 2 that came to mind.
Man, let's move on to the next one, and it is story time. Tell us a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
Well, we go back to my 20s. I was young, precocious consultant, had my models and systems tightly in hand, and was working with a client that was trying to create change in her university. And there was one gentleman in this process in her department who seemed really quite resistant to change. And I, in my youth and inexperience, actually sort of ignored or negated him as an element in the change. And to the detriment of the project and my client, it just backfired. It was one of those, they talk about the power of regret. Boy, I feel the regret to that day. And what I learned from that was to listen to and involve all stakeholders in the system that you're trying to change. And this helped me most when I was working with the coastal First Nations in Canada and working with economic development within these tribal nations. And there, the art of conversation it's really important. And I think that unless I'd had that sort of nose up against the wall experience in that previous engagement, I wouldn't have been as sensitized to the cultural depth required to navigate some of these traditional cultures. So in a way, I'm thankful for that. At the time, it was quite the bruise to my ego. And I think the best thing that could have happened, because I don't think my ego is necessarily my friend in getting results. So yeah, that would be the story.
So you're saying ego is the enemy? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Perhaps.
What would you say is the most worthwhile investment that you've ever made?
I would say investing in relationship in all its forms. I've been working to become a better partner, a better spouse, a better collaborator, better friend, better parent for most of my life. And I think that seeking of relationship has been the thing that has, it's the thing that will most likely cause me to change. I'm reminded of that line from the movie As Good as It Gets with Helen Hunt and Jack Nicholson, where he's struggling to tell her that he loves her. And finally he says, "Oh, well, you make me want to be a better man." And, I think that's what investing in a relationship does for me.
When you're saying investing in relationships, how do you mean that? Is it investing time? Is it investing something else? What do you mean by investing in relationships?
I think it's about, oddly enough, in relationship, you have two. What I was investing in was my own personal work, my own sense of clarifying how I operate, how I think, what my intention is, learning deeply about myself and making sure that I'm removing as many blind spots as I can as I'm relating to somebody. So I think it's really the personal work that leads to the interpersonal success.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I ask you what it means to invest in relationships, and you say doing the work on myself so I can show up better in these relationships. That was an interesting twist.
Yeah. It takes oneness before you can get two-ness.
All right, cool. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
That was a good question. I think the main thing for me is don't let my models of how things should work blind me to the reality of how they are working. I mean, all models and maps of how things work are by nature inaccurate, and some are useful. But to insist on the model in the face of the evidence to the contrary is the very definition of cognitive bias or blind spot. And that's something that I work hard to remove, or at least minimize, or be aware of and detect as I'm working in life and with clients.
How do you do that? How do you keep your cognitive bias in check?
Well, in part, it's valuing intellectual honesty. Am I going to tell myself the truth about what I'm seeing? Tell the truth, especially to yourself. Or am I seeking comfort in knowing how it's going? I think a lot of people don't do well with ambiguity or the unknown. They try to fill the unknown in a lot. And as soon as you've come up with an answer, you stop asking questions. So for me, I really try to picture everything that I'm seeing and hearing and make a visual representation of it. And if I can't picture something, I keep asking questions until I can picture it. And that seems to work for me in terms of using the visual aspect of thinking to keep clarity on what I'm looking at. It's a tough one. You've asked me about meta-cognition here, right? Thinking about my thinking. So
you didn't know what you were getting into, did you?
No, this is good.
Yeah.
This is good.
Let's get back to the script here. What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
Okay, well, we work a lot with business owners and founders and entrepreneurs. One of the things I hear a lot is do what you love, the money will follow. And I think that closer to the facts are help many people create what they want or get rid of what they don't want and figure out how to charge for the value you create. And that's not always the sexy answer that people want to hear. And yet it actually seems to work better. I would say another one is that we hear a lot is, to succeed, you've got to work on your deficits. And I think closer to the facts is that you have to identify and develop your native genius, your superpowers, and you only want to improve your deficits to the point where they stop interfering, sort of like make them suck less.
But can you, with the deficits, is an easy out to hire those out instead of trying to work on them? Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, whether it's hiring them out or a lot of this is about management of focus. Where are you going to place your focus? Because the energy follows the focus. So if you place your focus on what you don't want, maybe you're successful at getting rid of what you don't want, but then what are you left with, right? Nothing. You just got rid of it. And so what about focusing on what you want? And also taking a look at where are your strengths, what comes easiest to you. It doesn't mean that you can't learn other things, and I'm all for that. But I just think that there's some kind of thing that says in our society that God love the seeker industry, right? There's something that says in our society that you have to be fixed before you can be fulfilled. And I think there are a lot of people that are, pretty complex, compromised individuals like we all are, and yet they can create amazing things. I don't think the things are mutually exclusive. So I'm more fond of saying, let's focus on what you want and where your strengths are, And yeah, you may hire for the others, but it's more important that you're figuring out what you're doing and why. I think we might get into that a bit more later. Yeah.
Yeah. Like with me here at my house, I'm better at making money than I am managing it. So let the wife manage it. I'll just make it.
Well, there you go. There you go. That's a good way to cover that deficit.
Team effort, right?
You have an allowance?
No, I don't get anything. Hugs and kisses.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is about us.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a public service announcement. We're going to get right back into this show, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you have been listening to the show for any amount of time and you've picked up even one single tip, then I need your help. Get the word out. Tell people about resultsleader.fm. Share it on social media. Share it on your email. Share it anywhere. #ResultsLeaderFM. Now let's jump back into the interview. Why do results matter?
Well, I think some results matter more than others. I would say that at its essence, when you think about the creative process, about creating things that didn't exist before, we're really trying to bring into being an idea that we love enough to try to manifest it. And I know that sounds a little woo-woo, but I mean, that's what the creative process is. Something didn't exist. You think about the idea and you try some things in reality to orchestrate changes in reality, and then you've created it. So the results reflect the extent to which we have succeeded in our creative pursuit. So I think it's a feedback process.
Let's talk about your business for a second. What area of your business would you like better results?
Well, connecting with great clients. I think that the number one thing that I think most people in our industry, and especially in light of COVID, have found is that the networking and kind of referral and word of mouth and the serendipitous ways of getting business became far more difficult with everybody locked down in their castles. And so I think, how do we actually find the people who are ready for the kind of growth boost that we can provide them? So we're seeking that. Yeah.
In the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
I think one of them is that purpose, or why you're motivated to do something, is more important to sustain success than how you're doing it. And I would say another one is feedback loops. You know, all creating, all learning, all of building businesses involves feedback loop. So what's the quality and frequency of feedback loop that will actually change your behavior? You know, if you're building a business and you don't have a critical way of getting that feedback and listening to that feedback, then you're not likely to get far. Specifically, the founders among us know that we can get pretty latched on to our vision of what we want to create, and no one can tell us differently, except for the client who says, I don't value your offering that you're creating. That's the only thing that seems to get through some of the thick-headedness of the average founder. And yet, if you want to sort of like cling to your idea versus create something real, then we have a breakdown in that feedback loop. So what feedback loops will cause you to change your behavior in the pursuit of this greater thing you want?
Can you give us an example of what that could look like?
Yeah, we work a lot with innovation companies. Working with large multinational companies, will go in and set up 10-week innovation sprints, and working with teams of 6, say 4 to 6 teams at a time. And those teams are trying to go from 0 to 100 miles an hour in that time period. And the only thing that gets them through it is we have a tight structure of iteration. Each week, there's something that they have to get accomplished, and they have to present and then get feedback on it from trusted advisors and people who ought to know better. And so it's only with that repeating, iterative, rapid, time-boxed way of working that they can accomplish. I mean, within 10 weeks, they're accomplishing at least the seeds of maybe the future of the company. And so that kind of tightly structured feedback is critical to learning. It's critical to creating. It's critical to success.
What results are you most proud of?
So a couple of days ago, I just drove back into town. I was down in Columbus, Ohio, where my wife and I started our business. And I was speaking on a panel for the Cogence Alliance. And I was invited by one of our member of the company that our first client, Dynamics Engineering, started off as 12 engineers that split off from another company. We helped them start in 1997. We helped them spin off in energy services in 2011. And we were consulting with them in 2020. And then I was invited back to this panel on how you mentor and bring about emerging talent within your organization, what kind of culture is necessary for that. And the guy that invited me on the panel, I was privileged to be there, but he said, "Hey, I'm going to tell you there's something special happening tomorrow." Yeah, I can't tell you. And so he called me up and he said, we've just been bought by this big employee-owned engineering company. And we are now part of a place where we can really thrive. It's not a private equity firm. It's not any of those things that are just out for our money, but we found a home. And in addition, the two of the founders who started in 1997 are now comfortably somewhere I think they live a very good life, sometimes in the way of hurricanes, but they're doing really well. So that first client that we still work with today, and we see the long-term 25-year effect of, man, I'm really proud of what they've done. Yeah.
Any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders who are listening to us right now?
Yeah. Do your own work. Invest in your own learning, whatever that's looking like. Go for the uncomfortable stuff and seek truth over comfort, because that's the road to becoming a more effective creator in all ways.
Powerful, powerful. I know our listeners are going to want more from you. Where can they go to get it?
I would say ralstonconsulting.com, and I'm sure that'll be in the show notes. You can find me on LinkedIn, Gary Ralston, and also my wife and partner in crime in action, Ann Ralston. So that's where we hang. Look forward to talking.
Thank you. Thank you for hanging with us, Gary. Thank you, results leaders, for tuning in. Another episode is in the can. That is a wrap for another edition of ResultsLeader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to ResultsLeader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.